Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our show. We're so excited to have you joining us today. Well, I would like to give a very warm welcome to our host for today's show, Rachel. So I'll hand it over to her.
Thanks, Leah. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Meet the Makers Design School edition. My name is Rachel, and this series is all about sharing the stories that make up Canva. And we are extremely lucky to have so many wonderful people working at Canva who came from all types of walks of life. And today we are joined by one of our very own design school educators, Matt, to tell us a bit about his story. So let's find out a bit about him.
I live in the Blue Mountains, which is about 2 hours outside of Sydney in Australia. It's an absolutely beautiful part of the world. It's just untouched wilderness. Unfortunately, that means I spend a lot of time on the train. But if I'm honest, I actually see it as my superpower. I get 2 hours uninterrupted time to write scripts before anyone else has even got into the office.
So this is me in the studio, and they're working on one of the scripts that I've written.
On the weekends, I try to get down to the beach with the family. I love the water, so any water sports is good. Surfing, kayaking. Our most recent obsession is paddleboarding. It's a really great way to relax and get away from screens and be active. This footage is from a recent day we had where we paddleboarded under twin rainbows. It was pretty magical.
Morning, 6 a.m. This is where we normally start our day on the basketball court.
This is my dog Misty. Very good dog because I'm holding a ball.
So, Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I loved that little snippet into your life. Very cute dog.
My dog actually heard her name, and then I can hear her like scratching at the door now.
Running for the ball. Play with me. Very cute. So, Matt, how long have you been with Canva for now? It's been
Yep. So it's just over a year, which I think, the normal thing that people say in Canva, it kind of feels like 5 years because you've like learned so much and done so much, but at the same time, it feels like a couple of months, like there's still so much to learn.
Absolutely. You're basically a Canva veteran now. And I already know this because we work together, but the whole audience, what team are you part of and what is your role at Canva?
Yep. I am part of the design school, which is probably the best team in Canva, if I'm honest. My title is courses lead, and I spend the time thinking about how people can learn Canva, but I guess also design and the value of design as well.
Yeah, awesome. And did you do any studies before you started your career?
Yeah, so I studied graphic design at a place called Billy Blue. It's a small college. It was attached to like an award-winning studio. And when I went for the interview, I met the founder, Ross Renwick, and I was just totally, and I still am totally awe of him. He was such a creative trailblazer. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But in Australian graphic design, particularly Sydney design, he was kind of like the master at mixing art and words together and to make something really engaging. So I was very lucky that he sort of became a mentor of mine for quite a few years.
Yeah, wow. So you have a background in graphic design and now you're in an educational role. So how did that happen?
I kind of fell into it, I guess. But when you think back, it all makes sense. Like everything was laying pipe for a career in training and teaching. I guess after finishing college, I worked at a bunch of different design studios like everyone does. And I ended up working back at Billy Blue Design Studio. And at some point they needed help teaching at the school. And so I started doing a little bit of that and I started doing more and more and I really loved it. And then at some point they offered me a permanent position and more money. And I was just like, well, this is crazy, of course. Like couldn't believe I got paid to do it. So yeah, that was I kind of fell into it. And then I just got obsessed about how to make it better and improve and get better outcomes to the students.
Oh, I love stories like that. Like when you're open to different opportunities, you never know what way life might take you and it could be some pretty exciting directions.
So I know a little bit about your background, but how did you end up in teaching?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit similar to you. So I don't have a background in education, but before I came to Canva, I was in internal comms. So I was supporting IT teams with basically developing their communications. So my role was to create and adjust comms for other people. And a lot of the time, we often think by doing things ourselves rather than teaching other people how to do it is the easiest and quickest option. And sometimes it can be, but in the long run, it really isn't, because then they'll just come back to you over and over again with the same problems and never really understanding the logic behind the way we should be doing things, like communicating effectively. Yeah. So, I mean, I learned that we need to start educating people more rather than just doing things for other people. So that's when I moved into an adoption and change role, where I was able to upskill our employees on effective communication techniques, as well as our internal tech tools. And one of them was Canva. And now, funnily enough,
Here you are.
be part of the the Canva fam.
I love that idea of, and I always say it to my girls, the best way to learn something is to teach someone else something. And I've always got really excited about that when a student who becomes a graduate then wants to start teaching again as well, because they're just going to learn so much. Because being in the industry and doing it one way, you kind of learn one way to get to the end. But when you're teaching someone, you have to be, as you said, like open to all sorts of possibilities and be able to kind of help them find an outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, like, on that topic, were there any lessons that you learnt along your way?
Yes, so many. And I was hoping you might ask that question. I've actually put a little slide deck together in Canva. Can I share the screen?
Go for it, please.
Okay, here we go. I guess for me, my biggest experience in teaching was understanding that there's multiple styles of teaching. And this is really simplified, but like basically that Sage on the stage is your typical kind of way to teach someone. You have all the knowledge and you are passing it over to them. And it's what we call knowledge transfer, but it's a one-way street sort of thing. So I've got the knowledge, I'm giving it to them, and it's up to them what they do with it. And then I discovered the guide on the side sort of idea, and this idea that I could help them get started. I didn't have to give them everything. And then I just acted as a guide and let them kind of make mistakes and have some fun with things and just kind of experiment themselves. And that became a really kind of effective way for me to teach. Especially with design, it's such a experimental, experiential kind of thing to study. And you kind of have to do it. And so this idea of like, I learn how to do it, I practice how to do it, and then I have some fun with it, really kind of like helps you go. And then I discovered this final way, which is the meddler in the middle, which is super exciting, because that's where you admit as the teacher, you don't know. You don't really know the outcome, which in design, often we don't really know what the outcome is going to be. And so at this stage, you actually become a part of the student body. You're like, okay, this is the problem that we need to solve. I don't know what the answer is. Let's find out together. And, they can pull on my experience and my knowledge that I have, but then I can also pull on their life experiences and things that they know that I don't know. And so together we can come up with something. And I got really excited about that. And I think Aaron Hirsch did a piece in the New Yorker and in New York Times in, I think it's 2013. And he talked about this idea of, the typical way of learning, teacher to student, which we talked about that kind of at the very start. But he talked about this, you need to make it a triangle and you need to bring the world into it. And the world is just as much as a teacher as the teacher standing at the blackboard or at the screen sort of thing. So, and I really love this idea, and it really kind of made sense to me that this kind of the meddler, like the world is the meddler, you've got all the different sort of parts of it together. And so I think when I kind of discovered that there was like those three different, very simple ways to teach. And so when you're thinking about how, something you have to teach, and then you're going, okay, how can I do this? And I quite like to do like all three sort of thing. Like, okay, I'm going to give you some knowledge here. I'm going to show you some stuff. We're going to go through the kind of general stuff. And then I'm going to let you have an exercise to play with. And I'll be your guide. I'll be there if you need me, but like generally you got an exercise. And then we're going to work on a project together where I don't know the answer, and we're going to discover it together. So I think when I discovered that kind of way of teaching, that's when I felt like I really started making an impact.
Yeah, they all work so well together. And I love the name Meddler in the Middle. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like it could be some sort of upcoming band name or
and it is like when I got better at being the meddler in the middle, that's when you throw the hand grenades into, like you can see them going on one way, and then you throw that hand grenade in. Oh, but what if? And then oh no, I didn't think of that. And it's like that. It's that way of kind of like re-energizing them, kind of really motivating them, and building that intrinsic motivation for them.
Yeah, oh, I love that. And were there any, really big career highlights that you've had so far?
I wanted to show you very quickly another one, like how this kind of rolls out. So I used to run a branding and distribution class, and it was all kind of built around this idea of being the meddler. And so I'd run it with a whole cohort of students. So, typically it might be about 130, 140 students, and they would all come up with separate concepts. Then we'd have a voting system, and then we'd get down to like only 40 groups, and they had to choose, if their concept didn't go forward, they had to choose a group to belong to. And then, another week where we started looking at like the branding, again, voting system, people would be knocked out, they'd have to join another group. And then eventually it kind of whittles down until you have one project for the whole 140 students. And they have to get that out into, like, they've got 2 weeks to get that out into the social environment. And I've run it at lots of different places. And just every time it was like just huge. It was, everything from, I guess, ending up on TV, like students getting interviewed on TV, the brand ending up in the newspaper. Some students even sort of ran into a bit of trouble with the law. Yeah, that one was all about creating an art explosion in the city. And I think the branding was all this kind of looked like a bomb. And I think I know they hung this massive poster off a bridge, which had a big bomb on it. So as you can imagine, some people wanted to talk to them about that.
Yeah, what a great experience for the students to be part of.
I know, yeah. I mean, you nailed it. It's that lived experience. And when I see students now, that were in those cohorts, they always kind of talk about, that branding distribution class, just because it was just this idea of working in a study environment on something you think is going to work, but then actually being forced to actually really put it out into the world. And we talked about the world being that teacher, and see whether it really does work. The whole concept of this works even better when you have, maybe it's just as powerful, but when you have people outside of the design industry getting exposed to the design experience.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so this was a Sneaky Minds. And so basically, as part of the Australian Graphic Design Association, I went to the city of Sydney and said, you got any problems on your desks that you just, don't know what to do with, sort of thing. And they would give us each year a couple of problems that were like, we haven't got around to looking at this yet, see what you can do. And so we'd have 5 designers in each group, 2 council members, and then like 20 interested citizens. And so we'd spend the first part of the morning teaching them all about design thinking, and then we would like give them one of the problems. And it was crazy, like what they would come up with, just because they had such a different way of looking at things. And it's just stuff that you wouldn't normally get to. So for instance, how do you keep people quiet at night when they're leaving nightclubs like at 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning? And so you give them little lollipops, because if they've got something in their mouth, they can't be shouting or talking or anything like that. And that was like an 80-year-old grandmother who came up with that. And it was just when that sort of happens, it's like, and that's why I think the design thinking process is so powerful, because, you can use it for anything. Like you can use it like how to make a sandwich in the mornings. You can go through the process. And this is just one process. Like there's lots of different design thinking processes. This is the one that we generally use in Canva, although different departments have different steps. But, you use it for like making a sandwich, using it to like make, a dent in a problem that's huge, sort of thing. And you might not get an outcome, but you'll at least get steps to kind of get you closer to getting an outcome. I get really excited about the design thinking process, and really excited about teaching people the design thinking process so they can use it in their own businesses, lives. And anyone who's a design thinking process like evangelist, I guess, like it's always interesting to see their kids, because their kids have always got a very different way of like working through problems.
Yeah, no,
So
I was
that
just
was
going to
just
say,
me
you
showing.
nailed it. Like you can use the design processes in all areas of your life, not just in, the creative things, which is really cool. And I love that idea of the lollipops. I mean, that would totally work. It's a
It was
great
so,
way to.
and I remember when she came up with it and she was like, so could we, and like she said it and it was just quiet in the room and everyone was like, oh wow, that would do
Yeah,
it.
I love that. So you've had a pretty awesome career so far. Like, how did you then end up at Canva after all of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've got a good friend who started working at Canva, and every time we met up, he was raving about how amazing it was. And I really trust his judgment, and I thought I'd better look into it more. And a job came up that fitted me perfectly, so I thought I'd go through the interview process. Still unsure, but wanting to learn more about what Canva was. And in the interview process, they talked about this chance to impact people on a massive scale, like way bigger than I'd ever had. Like I've been writing design curriculum for 100 to 150 students, going through that a year. And they were kind of talking about this idea of like helping 100,000 people a year kind of learn the value of design. And I just felt like that was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down to kind of be involved in. It was too exciting.
And can you tell the audience a little bit more about this role of yours? So what does a design lead do for Canva's Design School exactly?
Yeah, courses lead. So I write courses that teach people specific parts of design and then show them how they can carry that out using Canva's design tools, because Canva is incredibly intuitive. And if you understand a little bit of the theory of design and why balance makes sense and why contrast is important, and then how that actually transfers to Canva, then in very quick time, you can start producing really professional looking and quality work. So I go through that. So like, designing a logo, how do you do that? What's the thinking you need to do in order to solve that problem? And then, transfer that thinking to Canva.
Yeah, because we started designing those learn and play workbooks.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love teaching theory. I know like theory can be a bit dry sometimes, but I always think if you understand like the kind of the why of something, get a little bit of the knowledge and then get a chance to kind of put that theory, that knowledge into practice and even better into play, then it really starts to make sense for you and it really kind of cements in your brain. So the learn and plays is exactly that. It's that idea of I learn a little bit about why this is important. I'm shown how to do that in Canva, and then I'm just kind of let go in the editor to kind of play around and sort of see what happens. And that's what makes Canva really powerful, because like the editor is our teaching space and it's also your design space. And it's just like you're in the program, you're in the system when you're actually learning this stuff. So you're not kind of like trying to remember what you learned and then transfer it somewhere else. It's actually, you're right there.
Yeah. And for those in the audience who haven't seen one of our learn and play workbooks before, basically on one side of the page, there's a really nice learn video that'll teach you a skill or how to use a feature in Canva. And then on the right-hand side, you can just go wild. You can design, you can actually use that skill that you've just learnt in the play. And that's why I love the learn and plays, because I'm a very practical learner myself. So yeah, I'm so glad that we started creating those.
We obviously do a lot of user testing, and it's wonderful watching the user testing videos when they're doing the learn and plays, because they have those wow moments. Like they're just kind of like doing what they were told to do, and then they're like, oh wow, I could do this. Oh, wow, look at that. And it's just like, it's so exciting. It's like, and that's what design should be about. It should be like that fun kind of like, yeah, I'm enjoying myself. I get paid for this. This is crazy. Like, just it's that kind of, and that's what I think about design. It's a wonderful, I think everyone should learn design thinking. And I think, it's a wonderful way to kind of approach problems.
Yeah. And like Canva as a tool is forever evolving. And I know when I joined Canva, it was quite a bit of a shock to the system to be in such a vibrant environment where things are moving so rapidly. Do you want to tell the audience what it's like to be part of such a fast-paced company like Canva?
So firstly, how long have you been at Canva now?
I think I'm just creeping over the 8-month mark.
Right. It's like, it's so hard because it's like, as we said, time moves different in Canva, and it is incredibly fast paced. And there's so many amazing people working on amazing things. And so the speed is warp speed compared to other places I've worked before. And I guess I'm constantly surprised in a good way by the new innovations that people are coming up with. And it's, you know, it's an incredible creative challenge as part of design school. And I'd love whether you think this as well, but like, how do you teach people something which kind of remains like the teaching thing, like I'm teaching you something, knowing that the product is moving forward all the time and evolving and improving. How do you find that?
Yeah, look, sometimes you just have to roll with it. That's what I've discovered. You just have to roll with it, be smart where you can be smart. But at the end of the day, we still need to educate everyone on the product as it is today, and then just adapt and be agile as things change. Probably agile is like a word that I had heard being thrown around so much, but didn't actually grasp the actual content, like the actual
how
word
agile it could be.
Yeah.
As an educator, it's a nerve-wracking experience. Like, what are they going to do now? But it's also like incredibly inspiring. It's like, and you know, things come up and you're like, oh, like that's going to make this so much easier. And like people are going to be able to get like to that outcome way quicker now. So yeah. It's, I always look every 2 weeks. I'm like, whew, here we go.
I know things are never, ever boring around here, ever.
So true.
Yeah. And like, I'd like to know, so at the core of Canva is the belief that, you know, we should all be a force for good. And what does this mean to you in particular?
I really resonate with this value. For me, there's really awesome, like every value in Canva is incredibly empowering and inspiring. But for this one, I guess it's about enabling and empowering people through design to communicate their passion and the causes they care about. And if you hadn't guessed already, I really believe design is such a powerful tool, and particularly the design thinking process. You can feed any problem into it and you get a solution. And, you know, I think I said before, like design thinking process, I think it should be taught in primary schools. Like it would create a more optimistic world where we're constantly looking for ways of how we can improve ourselves and situations.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And how do you find like the whole culture around Canva now that, I mean, especially we can be in the office again, which is really nice.
I know, it's so nice. The culture is amazing. It's incredibly supportive and everyone's really focused on helping everyone else do the best work possible. Yeah. And I know that's what every company promises, but I really believe Canva lives it. They don't sweat the small stuff, you know, everything from like, they have a Vibe and Thrive allowance, which every employee gets, where you can use it to help yourself thrive. And so you can use that for education. I've used it for running shoes, gym memberships, yoga classes, new technology memberships, like whatever it is that will kind of help you do your best work.
Yeah. And are you, yeah, no, I love that Vibe and Thrive. I've used it for gym membership as well, which has been really helpful. And are you part of any clubs?
Oh yeah, so clubs are another thing that demonstrates the culture really well.
Yeah.
So every Canva employee is encouraged to join up to internal clubs. So I am part, I've got to think, I need to probably look at my club membership. I'm probably part of too many at the moment. Beer club, bonsai club, which is pretty cool. We're about to get our bonsais. Marvel club, like, you know, talking about things Marvel. Literary club, that's probably one of my favorites. So each month they send you a famous book, and after you read it, you discuss it. And that's really opened my eyes up to how people view things differently to me. There was a book recently that I read that I loved and everyone else like uniformly hated. And I was like, wow, like what does that say about me that I actually really enjoyed it? What about you? What clubs are you in?
So I do the weekly yoga classes.
There's a weekly yoga class? I didn't even know there was a weekly.
It's actually like daily. They have yoga most lunchtimes and most evenings. So I try to do it at least once a week. Not great at it, but love it. And I've also just joined the wine club, which I'm pretty excited about. You know, life is all about a bit of balance.
gym club as well. It's
Oh, I need to join the gym club as well. Yeah.
I felt like being part of the wine club, gym club, and beer club probably might be
Bit
sending
much.
the wrong messages.
Just do the yoga and then it's fine. Balances it all out. So apart from joining the beer club, if there was one piece of advice that you could give someone who wants to work at Canva, what would it be?
Okay, learn Canva. So that was the little bit of advice that was given to me before my first interview. So I went away and I learned how to use Canva, and it is incredibly easy and intuitive, even more so when we've got the design school behind you, kind of like showing you how to do things. I presented my portfolio and all my work history through Canva templates, and it just made the learning curve so much quicker for me. So I joined and I could hit the ground running, basically. So I do see a lot of people join and they're trying to pick it all up, plus all the processes, plus how fast Canva moves already. And if you've got that one in your pocket already, then you're going to be in a much better space.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm looking at the time. Maybe last question. I know I've asked you so many things, but your career journey is so interesting. What do you think the future of the education industry looks like?
Oh, wow. You
Big
left
question
the big one to last. Leah, how long have we got? We got an hour, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try and make it quick. What needs to change in the education industry? Or what does the future look? What change? So it has to change. I think teachers all over the world are not paid enough. Their salaries rarely reflect the importance of their role. And if you think about it, low salaries make it harder to attract new teachers and retain those ones already in the profession. And that leads, and it is leading to a massive shortage of people actually wanting to teach. There was some research at the University of London, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like a 5% increase in teachers' salaries led to a 5 to 10% increase in pupils' performance, which when you think about that, that's pretty wild. So I think there's going to be a significant shift from where the teaching happens as well. Not saying privatization is the answer, but I think the typical pathway of junior school, senior school, universities is not necessarily the only or even the best way these days. I think there's a lot of interesting options appearing that will enable savvy students to get education and skills that they need, and then make them ready for the jobs they want and the jobs of the future.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great answer. I have so many friends who are teachers, and I love our teachers, and we need to look after them because they're raising our future generations. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your story with us. Even though we work together, I learned so many interesting parts of your career journey that I didn't know about. I'd love to hand things over to the audience. If there's any questions that you would like to ask Matt or myself, please feel free to ask away in the Q&A chat.
So we've actually already got a couple questions, and the first one comes from Renato, and he was wondering, Matt, if you have a design Instagram account that you'd be able to share with everyone today.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible on social media. So the thing that I mainly do is a podcast. So I do this podcast called Australian Design Radio. Been really slack for the last couple of months, but that's basically where I go out and I interview names in the design industry, in Australian design industry, and try and kind of delve into who they are, their background, but also try and answer a problem that might be existing in the industry. So, everything from like what makes a great design teacher to, diversity, like, the lack of diversity or how long it's taking for diversity to actually kind of be represented in the industry. Yeah, so that's probably the best place if you want to find out what I'm doing. So it's just australiandesignradio.com, ausdesignradio.com, and you can kind of find out who I'm talking to and more about what's happening in the Australian design industry.
Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. I've listened to a few episodes myself and really enjoyed them. So definitely check out the website, and it's also on Spotify. So our next question comes from Charlotte, and This one is also for you, Matt, but she is trying to learn how to make small graphics and was wondering if you have any tips. Now, this could be your next course, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. What sort of graphics is the first question?
Small graphics for print tattoos, I think is the end.
Cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be really cool. So yes, we should do a course on that, Rachel. That would be
That
really fun.
sounds
Actually.
cool.
So we've done a video recently which is all about kind of t-shirt making, and so there's a lot of similarities that would go across there. But I think the best way, like the element library is so huge and it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. So I would suggest getting a blank canvas in Canva and having a play looking through elements. The element AI is getting really good as well, in the sense that like when you move an element to your editor page, it'll give you other ideas. It'll say, hey, do you like this? Check out these other ones that are kind of similar. You can also hit that information button as well on an element and it'll tell you where it came from. So it's either come from within Canva Design or from like our community. And quite often you can find a particular illustrator or a designer that you really love the style, and then you can see all their other stuff that they've done as well. And that's really effective for like, I guess, building what you like and then kind of like then transferring to how that might actually work. Is there a smart mock-up for tattoos? Because that would be cool. They're like smart
sure.
mock-up, you can like throw anything on a t-shirt or like on a screen or anything, but it'd be cool if it's someone's arm and then you could like have the tattoo appear on the arm so you can see what it looks like.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Mary, and she was wondering if we are hiring at the moment, and we definitely are. I would recommend looking at our careers page. It should just be canva.com/careers. And you can look at all the different jobs that we are currently recruiting for. And you can also submit your applications there.
It's got a good search function, so you can kind of like put it down to like the region you're in or the particular type of job that you're interested in. So yeah, definitely look at that. That's where I send a lot of people, and there's new jobs all the time sort of coming up.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we've got for today. And just before you go, if you would like the chance to attend any of our other webinars, I would recommend looking at our events page. So it's canva.com/events. Well, thank you very much for attending Meet the Makers today. We hope you learned something, and make sure to stay tuned for future episodes with our team here at Canva. You can also follow us on social media for everything you need to know about life here at Canva. Well, have a great day or evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye.